I think one of the most striking things about Dunwall is how oppressive it is, to the player, its citizens, and just generally to be in. There are a few elements that fit in with this: technology, the outsider, and the shifts of power. All elements are uncomfortable in their own way. This all fits in thematically with elements of the game building towards a cohesive whole. Dunwall was not always this way. In fact, in one lifetime it appears to have changed so much, mostly due to one man, Sokolov. He's not only the inventor of his elixir, with its ability to keep the plague at bay, but also one of the prime inventors of things in the world that impede your progress, the Walls of Light and Art Pylons. He represents technological change funneled into one person, with all the potential negatives that can come with this. Not only are his inventions used for good, they massively oppress movements of citizens as well as the player character Corvo. And Dowd. But none of this would be possible without the whale oil, recently discovered and powering most of the things in the realm. This sets up a world where people have no qualms harvesting the natural world around them to power their inventions, and pushing forward technologically for the sake of advancement and nothing more. This also steps on some of the local customs and traditions hinted at in books, where the whale is sacred. Instead, they see it as only having one value: its oil. This, by the way, is where the runes come from that power your own abilities. They're also used to worship the outsider, suggesting a history that is not developed much elsewhere. This point about technology is enforced when you do meet Sokolov for the first time, where he is experimenting on the plague. You clearly hear that he's been provided test subjects by the state to try and further his elixir, even inflicting the vague on them against their will. The prime good in his mind is exploring the natural sciences, no matter the costs, an uncomfortable prospect that we can see the effects of. In all honesty, I've seen this sort of critique of technology used widely in all sorts of media. It is not a unique position, but I also don't think that it is a bad thing to represent. In fact, since Frankenstein, humanity's skepticism of technology has probably grown even further, but so has our dependency. So exploring this is interesting, especially the way that these advancements are limiting to the player. They zone off areas that you would normally want to progress through with the Walls of Light and the Art Pylons. The plague, another part of the discomfort, is very much analogous to the Black Death that wiped across our world, being spread by rats and causing huge amounts of death. It was said that the plague killed you whether rich or poor, but this statement has been challenged in more recent time. It suggested that the people that it killed, in much higher numbers, were those with poor health, much likely to be the poor than the rich in this era. This can be seen represented in Dunwall, not only with the rich benefiting from the plague, but directly profiteering from the rampant death, using the power structures against anyone in their way. Timch in the DLC is openly taking people's property, using the plague as an excuse. The game simply recognises that this naked profiteering is not only a possibility but a likelihood in these situations, something that our world is unfortunately proving at this moment. This is all without talking about the direct effect of the plague turning people into weepers, these mindless, blood-crying husks that are thrown out as waste. Bodies can be frequently seen piling up. You get the impression that the people moving them are just completely desensitised, just completing a job with idle banter. They are used to the state of the world and what it has become, the cynical glasses having been worn by everyone just in order to survive. All of this comes from the decisions from higher up, the spy master using the plague, injecting it into society to further his own aims. It's not only the imbalance of power that makes it uncomfortable, but the effects of it can be seen directly on the streets. Not only are all of these direct changes affecting the world, but there is a metaphysical element also, the outsider. Citizen of the Void, he represents a hidden chaos, an unseen manipulator. It is intriguing not only to look at him as a being, but who he gives his mark to. The only prerequisite seems to be that a person is interesting. Corvo, Dowd, and Delilah, just to name the ones that we know. He will happily change the fate of empires. He does not seem like he has a direct power, but he can affect things in his own limited ways, behind the scenes, similar to the Spy Master. The outsider definitely represents a form of chaos, one that you are happily in bed with to further your own aims. If it was only the outsider who changed things behind the scenes, it might be a little more palatable. All power changes hands out of the view of the public. The assassination of the Empress, her usurper being taken down, and then the revolution losing sight and just grabbing power, until Corvo comes and takes it all back. Out of sight, and none of it decided by the people. Not a place you'd really want to be. Dunwall is not meant to be present. Instead, it satirises a period of time where the British Empire was at its worst. It shows how destructive these powers are, and sets up a place for you to skulk in the shadows. There are some links in its heritage to Thief, a world that is counter to 1800s England. It's shared by both of these immersive sim-type games, with stealth at its centre, and I think it suits. Something about the centralisation of power and the abuse of the institutions that was rampant in this era of the world creates a place that's interesting to explore whilst also presenting sensible limitations. It rarely draws an analogy to all of the possible problems of this type of world, but it does set up a time that was abrasive and difficult, which can be clearly seen throughout the world and affects you, both in terms of narrative and play. That is all for today. My name has been Billy. Thank you for watching.